Hello there, wrestling friends and family. I'm Christian, back with you from Duality of Wrestling. Thanks so much for checking out the podcast again. I appreciate all of you who take the time to check out the AEW focused content. We need more of that in this space, and that is where I come in. Speaking of AEW, we just finished up the post Beach Break Dynamite last evening, which was July 15th, 2026. This was really an exposition heavy show. It was mostly centered around the fallout of Beach Break, the big title change of Kenny Omega from MJF, and what that means for the upcoming shows, including Redemption as well as All In. So this was a lot of basically a groundwork laying kind of show. So let's get into it. We opened up the show, and you can tell it's an exposition heavy piece by the fact that it opened it with just a video montage recapping the events of Beach Break, the Jericho Ciampa match, the Takeshita title loss to Kyle Fletcher for the International Championship, Willow winning the Casino Gauntlet match to earn the right to face Tekla for the Women's Championship at Redemption, and then obviously the big one of Kenny Omega defeating MJF for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship, and he is now slated to face Will Ospreay in the main event of All In at Wembley Stadium on August 30th. We open up following this video with Mox and Ospreay in doing a backstage promo before the opening match. Moxley espouses to Will not hesitating and pulling the trigger no matter who the target is. Obviously, this is a significant level of foreshadowing for some things that are going to happen in the relatively near future. He's mostly referring to Kenny Omega, but this also plants the seeds that, no matter who the target is, could easily be Jon Moxley himself. So, and I think that's eventually where the story goes. You're eventually going to have the conflict of Mox versus Ospreay at the top of the Death Riders hierarchy. And that's a story that clearly they're going to get to, and they're laying the groundwork for it already, which I love. Again, AEW's creative in the main event scene has just been so good lately. Everything they have touched regarding all of the main event contenders, be it Ospreay, Andrade, Kenny, MJF, Mox, Kevin Knight, Kyle Fletcher, everything they've done with the guys at that main event tier has been excellent so far. So no notes from me on that whatsoever. Opening match, we have Cage and Cope defending their AEW World Tag Team Championships against the Death Riders version of the NWO Black and White, that being Wheeler Yuta and Danny Garcia. Now, I complained a little bit the day of Dynamite when this match was first announced, because I don't like the idea that this match really didn't get any promotion. Yes, I'm very aware this is more just a showcase match for Cage and Cope. There's no real competitiveness about this. There's no real threat that the Death Riders B team is going to go over Cage and Cope here to win the tag team championships. That said, Cage and Cope are one of the most decorated and beloved tag teams of the last 30 years of professional wrestling. They are also doing what is more than likely their swan song as a tag team at the top of the card right now. This is probably their last run with the tag team championships. So I feel like we should be giving their run a little bit more of promotion, and probably not just dropping the day of. And literally the match was announced in the afternoon, the day of Dynamite, that they were going to have this match. Don't like that. Championship match should have at least some build. The very least we could have done was put a graphic plug on Collision. Hey, Cage and Cope are going to defend the titles Wednesday on Dynamite against the Death Riders. We didn't even get that. We got that day of. So don't like that. Some people have said I'm nitpicking for that. I disagree. I think, again, with the duality of wrestling in mind, wrestling only works when we care about the violence in the ring and the action in the ring, about who it's happening to and why it's happening overall. So if we aren't invested in any kind of story, which takes promotion to happen, why are we doing it? I understand other promotions are fine with sort of just dropping in matches, even title matches, on an impromptu basis with no promotion whatsoever. You're not going to find me ever championing that mindset. I don't believe in it. I think every match that should be on a card deserves at least the due promotion of having a graphic on the previous show's card, if not more build entirely. So don't love it. The crowd was hot, that said. The The Boston crowd actually sang along with every word to Metalingus for Cope's entrance and wasn't just sort of humming along with certain parts of it. Having listened to that song ad nauseum in my college years, I can tell you that they were all on point. So good job, Boston crowd. And then Taz finished it up by going, that song sucks. Taz was in full curmudgeon mode tonight. And it was great. It was really, we don't get a lot of heel commentary that's super blatant in wrestling anymore. And normally I think that's a good thing. I'm kind of glad the generalized "what, I didn't see it" heel trope of a commentator is dead. I'm happy we've evolved beyond that. That said, I'm glad when we have commentators who can channel it from time to time. I think that's where it makes sense to utilize it. So, and this was just sort of a fun way for Taz to be a grumpy old man, and I enjoyed it. Um, more pre-match stuff. You had Cage and Cope before the match backstage in a pre-tape, talking about the dogs and the Death Riders and how they're going to be starting tonight with Yuta and Garcia. Cool, great. The more overarching story is between them and the Bang Bang Gang, but that is more to come later on that. But they finished the pre-tape by saying Christian taking over from Cope and going, and as far as the Boston Red Sox are concerned, again, they're in Boston, Cope stops him and goes, "We don't like the Yankees either." Both from Toronto, obviously both are AL East rivals to the Blue Jays, so totally fits both men. But man, I love that Christian is just this, he won't let go of the fact that he's a heel, and Cope just has to sort of begrudgingly drag him over to the babyface side of the aisle and just is very exasperated in doing it. And it's just fun. You have friends like that who are just sometimes stuck in a rut, and you're not going to throw away your friendship with that person over it, but sometimes they're going to make you eye roll and sigh and be like, yeah, he's my friend and all, but woof. Finally get to the match itself, and there's not a lot of really to discuss here from an in-ring standpoint. As I mentioned, it was mostly a vehicle to get Cage and Cope on screen and eventually get them back into what they were doing with by proxy the Death Riders and the Dogs, and eventually the Bang Bang Gang. The crowd again stays hot with big "He's your father" and "Who's your daddy" chants directed at Danny Garcia when Christian Cage is in the ring, and very, very loud "F you" chants to Wheeler Yuta. For being a low to mid card guy, Wheeler Yuta is incredibly over as a heel. And I actually think it's something they're a little bit dropping the ball on taking and running with, because again, while Yuta is still relatively younger and less prominent a talent, he is so hated by the audience that I think we're almost doing a disservice not playing off of that more than they do. They did a good job of that at the early part of the year when he was involved in the Tony Storm, Marina Shafir, Roderick Strong beef that ended up with him being shaved, but we've kind of lost sight of that since, and Yuta's been relegated to the background, especially since Ospreay has come into the fold. I'd like to see Wheeler Yuta have a little bit more chance to shine on his own as a heel, since the crowd hates him so much. During the match, Christian feigns the Danny dance, as I'll call it, the old thing he used to do when he was part of the Jericho Appreciation Society, but just ends up flipping the double bird to Garcia. Classic heel Christian Cage. Towards the end of the match, Death Riders do their, continuously running lariats into the corner that they've been doing of late, and then Yuta and Garcia do their circle hug. I don't know what you would call that. I feel like it happens more in like organized team sports, but the Death Riders do it a lot, and I always think it looks weird. And actually, Taz kind of echoed my sentiments. He's like, not a fan of that weird circle celebration. Thank you, Taz. I have also been described as grumpy myself a few times, so spirit animal suplex machine. But yeah, I don't like it either. Following the match that Cope and Cage predictably won, but they actually ended up winning it with a pop-up spear combo but with Cage and Cope, so that looks pretty cool. But following the match, you see the Young Bucks watching from the stands, obviously going towards the long game of that's where this story is going to go over the long term. Most likely at All In is what everybody's expected ever since Cage and Cope came back on the scene. So that shouldn't be of any surprise to anybody. And then the Dogs and Claudio attack post-match until the Bang Bang Gang come out to assist. Jay White eventually comes out towards the very end, gets the shillelagh from David Finlay, sort of punks him out with it. And that leads us to sort of a tense confrontation between Cage and Cope and Jay White, mostly between Cage and White. I will say, as they were treated, Clark Connors from the Dogs had some crazy cupping marks from treatment being done on his back. Usually they're a little bit faint. No, these things were like purple bullseyes on Bro's shoulders. Check out this show if you haven't had a chance to, and look for Connors' shoulder as he leaves. That dude looks like he has polka dot skin in that area. It is weird. So we get to sort of a vignette recapping Collision from last week, talking about Harley Cameron losing in Hikaru Shida's first TBS championship defense to what we're calling the TBS lock. And that looks like it's being used, based on what commentary said, to write Harley Cameron off TV. They said she's out for the foreseeable future. That sucks. Less Harley on our TV is always a bad thing. That woman excels at every role she's in, all the way back to the QT Marshall aid days, all the way up to Minnie Monet and everything Babes of Wrath, everything since. She's golden. I'm sad when she's not on TV. But that also makes us puts us in track for Collision, where Queen Aminata came out in that previous week's Collision and made the save for Harley Cameron. So we're getting a TBS title match with her versus Hikaru Shida at this coming week's Collision on Saturday. I'm fine with it. Aminata needs more time in that sort of upper mid card exposure on the main roster, so that's a good move. And putting her in there with somebody like Shida, I think, can really help her develop. So good decision there. I'm still not super on board with Aminata, to be very frank. I think she could really do well with a heel turn. I think her one and only bit doesn't work as a babyface, especially one who hasn't accomplished anything. You haven't won a tag title, you haven't won singles championships, you haven't really made any noise in the Owen or anything like that. So you like doing sort of a self-congratulatory pose feels weird and very not in keeping with a traditional babyface alignment. So don't like it. I think she could be better served being a heel. Hopefully they go that direction with her eventually, if they keep her in the same character. We then get an Andrade vignette and then a backstage promo. We get revealed that Andrade is now in possession of MJF's Dynamite Diamond Ring. They mentioned he got it from a friend. Renee asks, was that friend Will Ospreay? And Andrade, of course, gives her the look and goes, how you know? Fantastic. Andrade is on fire with everything right now. More Andrade is obviously better. We get another backstage segment with a conglomeration that is quickly interrupted by the Demand to seemingly interject themselves into the Trios titles picture. I don't even know if there is a Trios title picture. I know that the conglomeration have them, but they're not really doing a whole hell of a lot with them. So the Demand steps up to sort of insert themselves, and then they are later jumped by the Lethal Twist. And Ricochet says, I did promise that the Demand wouldn't come at you. They're not in the Demand yet. So that's interesting that they could incorporate some of the Lethal Twist into the Demand. I think that stable has kind of gotten a little bit stale on its own. They could use a little bit of new blood there, especially if it puts the Trios Championship in their, arena. I'm all for that. Next match on the card, we get Jake Doyle versus Andrade El Idolo Eliminator match, where if Andrade El Idolo successfully defeats Doyle, he will earn a championship match against Mark Davis. And I think we all know where this is heading, so there's not really a lot to super comment on in the outcome of this match. It didn't really seem very much in question, even when it was announced at Beach Break. Andrade did wear his awesome new How You Know shirt out to the ring and kept it on most of the match, at least up until he engaged with the plant outside the ring who takes the pictures with him. The only downfall I see to that shirt, because again, I think I've mentioned this before, most wrestling merchandise is pretty cringe and it's not stuff you really want to wear in public. The How You Know one you probably could get away with, and I was all set to make that point up until Andrade turned around to get in the ring and I saw the top at the neck area of the shirt said Real Latino Man. That that kind of narrows your audience down a little bit. I won't speak for anybody else. Y'all do you if you want it. I would have some awkward feelings about wearing a shirt that said "Real Latino Man" out in public. Feel like that might raise some eyebrows. At best, at worst, I might have some questions to answer, or at least dirty looks come my way. I don't want any of this. I have a low social battery person, despite the fact that I run a wrestling podcast. So the idea that a shirt could have people come up to me and ask either awkward questions or give me strange looks, that's a huge dissuading point for me from purchasing said shirt, no matter how fun the catchphrase is. So, no, not going to do that. So, Andrade goes over with the DM. We show that he, again, also has the MJF diamond ring in the ring, as well as was wearing a second shirt underneath. It was the iconic shirt he had on at Forbidden Door, which was the F Don Callis, F MJF shirt. Love that. Super fun. After the match is over, Mark Davis comes out to try to intimidate Andrade. Andrade backs him off with the Dynamite Diamond ring, putting it on, threatening to, jack him up with that. That keeps Davis at bay. That match is now official for Redemption. Mark Davis defending his AEW National Championship against Andrade El Idolo. Should be a lot of fun. I will say I do expect Andrade to emerge victorious unless we get MJF coming back. And I'm not sure we do this soon afterwards. From the reports I've read in the days of the fallout from Beach Break, I'm told that while he's factored into all-in plans, he is going to be taking some time off in the immediate future. So I'm not sure they're going to bring him back 8 days later. We know MJF is a hard worker, but that man has earned as much time off as he needs, especially when you factor in he was working with that hyperextended knee for a while. Hopefully he's able to rest up, he'll hang out with his new wife, and then come back with some fresh creative when the dust has settled from, ideally, Kenny and Will at All In. Hey gang, quick housekeeping note here, just as we did for the Beach Break review. This is going on a bit long, so I want to keep this very easily digestible for everybody. So this is going to be the end of part 1. I will be back here very shortly with part 2 of my review of the July 15th Dynamite. For right now, that'll be the end of this segment. I am Christian for Duality of Wrestling. I will see you on the next one.